Today I'm joined by Claire Wright. She ran to be the MP for the East Devon constituency as an independent candidate in the 2015, 2017 and 2019 general elections, coming ahead of Labour and the Liberal Democrats, but behind the Conservatives on each of those occasions. She also increased her vote share each time, and in the most recent general election, received more than 25,000 votes. She's also had more than 10 years experience of being a local councillor. And as we speak, she is serving as a Devon County councillor. And today, I'm going to be asking her about her experience of running to be an MP as an independent candidate against the party machines. So first of all, Claire, thanks ever so much for agreeing to talk to me today.
Thank you for asking me.
Okay, most obvious question first. Why run as an independent, Claire? Why not join a political party and try to become a politician that way?
Well, because I've always been an independent. So when I first started out back in 2009, I was an independent councillor, starting out at the time with Ottery St Mary Town Council. And my first election I ran and got elected to be East Devon District Council as an independent. And so I have never been a member of a political party. And I always felt that I could represent people better by ploughing my own furrow and by being flexible and nimble enough to be able to represent people's views in an independent way, rather than having to sort of worry about what the party line was and adjusting my position, or worrying about, you know, what senior people in the party might think of any particular campaign that I might want to run.
It must be exhilarating to win even a local election as an independent, to beat the machine, as it were.
Yes, it was. Well, in my first election in 2011, East Devon District Council, I ousted the Conservative leader of the council, who had been the leader of the council for 10 years, and a Conservative councillor on East Devon District Council for 20 years. So that was quite a moment, it felt. That was my first election. And then I suppose I've fought an election since, and two elections in 2017. So it's sort of become part of my raison d'etre, it feels, to fight elections. And of course, you know, winning elections is incredibly intoxicating. You work really hard for them locally, and you know, on the day that you win, you know, you give your speech, and you know, there is an enormous high, and it's a wonderful feeling that so many people have put their trust in you to represent them. But I think general elections probably are a whole thing apart. I would say that the three parliamentary elections that I have taken part in, probably I've loved so much. I would say they were probably some of the best times of my entire life, and particularly the 2019 election, because by 2019 I think I felt that I had matured as a candidate. I was really sure of my position on a whole range of different policies and issues. I felt that at the time, with a Conservative majority of -43 or whatever it was, you know, the word independent had become much more commonplace. Conservative MPs were, you know, pulling out the party and saying they were going to become independents. Brexit was totally, and it was an incredibly I guess just exhilarating campaign. You're right, that word is the correct word. And just full of such energy and excitement and hope. And it felt like all three times really, that I was in new ground, and just a wonderful time with people who were so excited at the very idea that, you know, this could, you know, we could have an independent MP in East Devon for the first time. But not only the first time, it would have been, you know, the Conservatives have, you know, been in charge of East Devon in terms of the constituency pretty much since records began. So the first time ever that there would have been a non-Conservative MP ever in East Devon. So there was a whole range of you know, basically trying to beat the establishment, was just so exciting. And yeah, it was a wonderful time.
So Claire, would you advise others who are thinking of running to be an MP as an independent candidate to first get involved in local politics? Because before the first time you even ran as an MP, you had many years of experience as a local politician.
So I would say to anyone who was considering a parliamentary career, or at least a parliamentary campaign as an independent, I think there are, I've always said, right from the very start, there are four main challenges which got progressively less difficult for me, but are very much there and need to be overcome. So first of all, you need to be someone in your community. And when I say community, constituency, and constituencies are pretty big. I mean, East Devon alone had around 60,000 houses, took in around 6,000 houses in Exeter. And you have to be somebody that people recognise because you don't have a party label. Otherwise, they won't give you a second glance. So that's the first thing. It's just having that reputation or that sort of name that people recognise in a good way. You also need money. So in 2017, I think we spent around £14,000. And in 2019, it was around 16,000, something like that. We actually reached our spending limit for the Electoral Commission guidelines in 2019. So, in a potentially very short space of time, snap election, you have to raise an incredibly large amount of money, or you have to spend it your own money, which is a lot of money if you don't, to actually pull out of your own pocket. And for most people, that's unaffordable. And it certainly would have been for me if I'd had to fund it myself. You need people to help. And just to put that into context, in 2019 campaign, I had around a core team of people, really excellent people who were sort of experts in their own field. And on top of that, about 14 for my core team. And then for people who were kindly helping leaflet and door knock, we had a much wider team of maybe 500 or more people right across the constituency, all in their areas, who were doing like door knocking and leafleting, and they were sort of managed by someone who's who was in the core team, who was sort of managing those sort of team leaders on the ground. So it was all very organised, sort of spider web affair. You also need to have credibility. So in my first campaign, what I got so much more than anything, and this got increasingly less as time went on in terms of my two subsequent campaigns, it was that so many people said to me, well, an independent, you're not going to get elected. What's the point? It's just a wasted vote. Why am I going to vote for you? So I had to, to overcome the credibility barrier was a big thing. So by the time it got to 2019, I had definitely overcome that. Virtually no one said to me, there's no point in voting for you, you're not going to get elected. But the other side of the credibility barrier is to actually convince people that an independent can achieve something once elected. And there have been independents elected in the past who have achieved things, and they can do things. And it's a total myth that the party system has to be the only system in Parliament that can make things happen. That is not true. As an independent, you can do stuff. Caroline Lucas is a Green MP. She's the only Green MP. She does stuff. Martin Bell was an independent MP. He got stuff done. So, that is a problem. And it's a much bigger problem because all of the parties, not just the Tories, but the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, were all going around saying, don't bother voting for Claire because she actually can't get anything done if she's elected. So I had to overcome that sort of disparaging, critique from my opposition. So yeah, you get all of that. You have dirty politics, my signs were pulled down and blah, 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 blah. To stand. But I think the most important thing is if someone is interested in standing, they need to have a really good solid track record behind them of representing local people's views in a way that local people find inspirational and acceptable to them.
And as far as funding is concerned, I did want to mention that, Claire, because you brought it up in your answer there. In the 2019 general election, the Conservatives raised millions during that campaign, and you, as I recall, had a policy of not accepting donations from big business. And if I remember it correctly, you actually received one such donation and handed it back during that election. So do you think you were essentially fighting with one arm tied behind your back, at least financially?
Yeah, it's very unfair. So that the system for parties is very different from the system for independents. So they get an allowance for the party nationally. So they have a core budget they can spend nationally on advertising. And in East Devon, we saw, you know, the area swamped with all kinds of Tory propaganda that was masquerading as local newspapers, which was very frustrating. So, you know, my opponents. It was obviously not the Green Party and the Lib Dems didn't have that kind of money to spend, but certainly the Conservative opponent had an immense amount more to spend than me. So, but if you look at the declaration in the Electoral Commission, then his into account the National Party spend, which is, you know, pulled from a central budget, which wouldn't have counted in his personal expenditure. So yeah, it's true, and we could have spent loads more. I mean, I'm not saying that if we had spent loads more we would have won, but it would have made things easier to get round more leaflets, to have, you know, more advertising, to pay for more stuff. Yeah, of course that would have perhaps increased my vote, but, you know, who knows. But yeah, it's certainly an unfair playing field, or an unlevel playing field, I should say.
And one thing I found fascinating about you as a candidate, Claire, was you actually took surveys of around 500 of your constituents prior to running in 2015 and 2019 to help inform your manifesto. So how did that work? How did that process work?
Well, when I was considering running or preparing a campaign for 2015, so this would have been probably the first part of 2014, I was racking my brains to think of something fair and something properly representative and something different. And, you know, the parties always have their manifestos written by central office and they're sent out and everyone has to sign up to them. And I could have written a manifesto based on my own views. You know, I've got plenty. However, that wouldn't have been representative. And I wanted to be somebody who people could say, actually, she is properly representing my view because she took a survey and what she's doing is fair and her manifesto is based on the views of people living in the constituency. So what we did in 2015 was to, for 6 months, go out to every town and every village in East Devon and put it out online, a survey asking people to rank the issues of local issues and national issues of importance to them. And on the back of that, I launched my manifesto in January 2015. And then, of course, in 2017, there was a snap parliamentary election and we didn't have any time to change it, but I just updated it with the current issues as I saw them, which were, you know, education, the NHS, etc., and Brexit. And then in 2019, I mean, I think we'd all, you know, me and my team had been preparing really for the 2019 election, sort of on and off since 2017, really. We all knew it was coming, we just didn't know when. And as a result, in the January 2019, we put out a survey online this time for people to complete and again to rank the issues as they saw them as being most important. So it's pretty similar to the 2014 one, but maybe a bit updated. And on the back of that, I formulated my 2019 manifesto, which was very similar actually to the 2015 one, but had a range of updated campaign positions, such as on the NHS, such as on education, such as on the police, and of course on Brexit. And that just seemed like the fairest way to do it.
Yeah, so I suppose my follow-up question is, what then would happen if the constituent surveyed came up with a position that you really disagreed with, and would you then have campaigned? Perhaps you did. I don't know. For a position that you didn't personally agree with.
I mean, in a sense, I suppose I was lucky because there was nothing in the results from the survey that I disagreed with. I think probably some things were probably in a different order than I would have put them, but there was nothing in that manifesto. I mean, for example, the NHS came out. I mean, if you're looking at the ranking of people put the issues in, NHS was way out there, far bigger issue for people than anything else. So it was very easy to make that my key campaigning platform. And, you know, I've been on Devon County Council's Health and Alloc Case Scrutiny Committee for 7 years and worked for 10 years in the NHS. So, you know, it was natural ground for me in any case.
What about your Brexit stance, Claire? Do you think that ultimately cost you in the end in your bid to become an MP? Because you were for a second referendum. You said that if that were to take place, you'd campaign to remain in the EU. I'm talking about the 2019 general election here, obviously. Obviously, East Devon as an area had a 54% vote for leaving the European Union back in 2016. Yeah, your reflections on that.
Okay, well, the district had a 54% vote in favour of leaving the EU, but the constituency was pretty much 50-50. So I don't think my Brexit position cost me the election. I think a lot of people were really, really keen to see someone get elected who actually wanted to see a bit of democracy. And given that everything had changed so dramatically since the 2016 referendum, they wanted to see a second referendum. They wanted to get behind someone who was going to campaign to remain. And also what I found, to my surprise, was that there was actually quite a lot of people who did vote in favour of Brexit, but who said to me, actually, they were going to vote for me because everything else, all of the rest of my manifesto they supported. So they were, I suppose, soft in that way. They weren't hard liners. They were more soft. So maybe sort of more moderate, one nation conservatives. And I think you also have to take a position that you feel with your heart is right. And I could not have taken any other position when I took over Brexit, because I just felt so passionately that Brexit was wrong, and I still feel that it's wrong. Of course, we're still heading for a no-deal Brexit, and it's still looking disastrous, and we're still, set to team up with Donald Trump at the cost of just about everything that we stand for and is good and right and proper and true. So, my position on that hasn't changed, and it won't.
By contrast, could you make the argument that you were indirectly helped by Brexit? Because obviously the 2016 EU referendum sparked off this very turbulent time in British politics, meaning that you not only had the opportunity to run in 2015, but also very quickly again in 2017 and then in 2019. So do you think you would have been able to generate the momentum you did as a candidate had those elections been 5 years apart each instead of 2?
That's a difficult question. Probably not. But equally, was I helped by Brexit? Well, I didn't get elected. And I think possibly if Brexit had not been on the cards at all, yes, of course, there probably wouldn't have been 2 snap general elections. But equally, would people have been more open-minded to the idea of an independent MP that wasn't going to, hadn't taken a position that half the constituency didn't like? So it's a difficult one, isn't it? But who knows?
Okay, last question, and this is my attempt to get an exclusive for this channel.
Oh, I wonder what's coming next.
So you know what's coming next. Are you going to run again?
Am I going to run again? Well, I never say never. Who knows? I mean, it's the next election is probably not going to be a snap election. He's got his 80 majority. No matter what atrocities are committed in the next 4 years, the Conservatives are not going to vote another general election through. So who knows what's going to happen in the next few years? I might be doing something completely different. And I have to say that, after running 3 parliamentary elections and putting my heart and my soul into it, but not just my heart and soul, it's the hearts and souls of, countless other people, because all of the people who helped me put their hearts and souls into it. People ask me all the time, they see me in the supermarket and say, oh, don't give up. At least I just want someone to vote for. And I think, gosh, it's a lot of work just to have someone for you to vote for. So I'm not saying no, and I'm not saying yes. I'm just saying 3 does seemed to be like rather round number for parliamentary elections, which in the end I didn't win. So we'll see. There may be another path out there for me.
Okay, on the fence it is.
On the fence, sorry. Politician's answer.
Claire, thanks ever so much for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate the interview. It's nice.